Sorry, I have to record.
Hi, Deanna.
Hello, everyone.
Good to see you. I love the picture behind you.
Thank
I do.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
He's really handsome, huh?
He's present with us. Hi, Andres. Yes. Faces.
Good morning. Well, we're going to go ahead and begin. Good morning and welcome to our 45th online gathering for Synod, rostered, and lay leaders. This monthly gathering we call Coaching for All Seasons, and it is sponsored by your Pacifica Synod coaches. And we want to thank you for joining us today. My name is Sarah Tees. I am the Director of Coaching for Pacifica Synod, and I'm also one of your facilitators today. Our coaching team has cultivated this monthly gathering for church leaders across our synod. We hope you find this helpful as you navigate caring ministry within your communities. This is meant to be a time of insight and learning, and it is meant to be a brave space where you can feel capable of sharing and safely acknowledging who you are and how you are doing. Before our presenter begins, I would like to introduce my colleague and friend, Coach Dina, and Dina is going to introduce our presenter today. Dina, it's so good to see you this morning.
Thank you, Sarah. It is my pleasure to introduce to you one of our ELCA coaches, Barbara Belon. Barbara received her doctorate from Teachers College, Columbia University in 1985, specializing in teaching methodologies and curriculum development. Fast forward through the years, Barbara started her coaching journey via training provided through the Northeastern Pennsylvania Synod of the ELCA. She is a certified level 2 coach specialized in discipleship. Barbara received her Associate Certified Coach credential, an ACC, from the International Coaching Federation in August of 2022. During the past 5 years, Barbara's coaching assignments include working with the ELCA grant recipients, first call and ordained clergy, business professionals, and college faculty teams. She is also selected as a WBEX facilitator for 2022-2023. In her role as a co-PI for a National Science Foundation grant, Barbara authored a short course on coaching essential skills, which had its initial delivery in early of 2022. Today, she will share the essentials of coaching with us and how to develop this skill set for everyday life. Thank you so much, Barbara, for sharing your gifts and wisdom with us today.
And thank you, Ms. Dina. Thanks to all of you for showing up today. I'm going to share my screen and get this ready to rock and roll. Okay, so sound is on, and I'm just going to set that to that. All right, so hopefully you're seeing the first slide presentation. I don't hear anything. Can someone confirm that you can see the presentation?
It's good, Barbara.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so greetings and thanks for the invitation to speak with Pacifica Synod's coaching group. I was asked to talk about the new seminar, and yeah, that's what I'm going to do, but I thought I would do it in a less boring way and get you engaged in some of the content within the course. So as Dina said, I've invested the past 8 years in becoming a professional coach, and I'm working in research, and that is studying the effects of giving college students and college faculty some of the basic coaching skills. Of course, and those two main skills involve the listening, very, very active listening, as well as the art and science of asking powerful questions. It was my work experience, plus the research and coaching, education, and all this was used in the creation of this new course. I wanted to basically, though, create something that was not really for coaches to deliver, yes, but not for coaches. This course is for people who have absolutely no intention of becoming a coach, but can see the value in learning some of the coaching skills. Eventually, I am hoping to invite ICF certified coaches to attend a Train the Trainer course and enabling them to also deliver the seminar. Well, and my reason for that is that, the more people delivering this seminar, that means the content can reach many more people than I alone can ever do. Secondly, it's my hope that making this seminar available to coaches can also assist them in growing their business, giving them an additional tool to offer rather than just the coaching sessions. So currently the seminar Coaching for Everyday Life is offered by the ELCA Coaching Ministry, and it is also going to be offered by Luther Seminary's Faith Lead program for their fall calendar. So instead of just talking about the seminar, I'm going to take you through some of it with some new pieces added just for you coaches. But first, a poll. So Sarah, if you would put up the first poll. And you're going to have to confirm for me that it's up, because within this PowerPoint presentation, I can't see it.
I can see it. Can others see it?
No,
I'm
I
not
don't.
seeing. Oh, no, I don't see it.
Oh, darn. Anything else you can try, Sarah?
It says it's been launched in the meeting. Let me try one more time.
Interesting. I wonder if there's a conflict between the presentation mode, the PowerPoint, and the.
Maybe. Let me see if I
poll.
can try one more time.
Oh,
There we
it
go.
just popped up on mine.
Okay.
Okay, so there should be a drop-down menu there, I believe. Yep. So the statement is, which statement describes your understanding of the brain's functioning in memory storage and memory retrieval? You get to choose from those 4 choices that are up there on the screen. So just go ahead and pick one, and then Sarah will do the readout for us. So again, Sarah, I can't see on my screen. So
Yep. Almost done. Okay, we're done. That's
okay, great.
That's
So
it.
again, so Sarah, what does the poll say? Oh, there it is. Okay. So I'm really relieved that there are no neuroscientists in the audience today. Okay. You can go ahead and close that.
Okay.
And we'll move on to the next slide here. Come on. There we go. Okay, so when we're talking about listening, there really are several objectives to developing listening skills. Now, as coaches, we are trained to respond to others. Unfortunately, part of our culture treats many of these opportunities for meaningful conversations as just throwaways. We just don't take the time to listen deeply. And again, this course focuses on everyday life, from your kitchen table discussions to your office discussions to stopping someone on the street and talking to them there, or a stranger you don't even know. These small, very short chunks of time that we call conversations. So when a person is asked a memory retrieval question, like they have to pull something out that was stored there someplace, humans are more likely to remember something based on how much attention it was given and how engaged they were at the time it was stored in their brains. Again, there's a very big relevancy that I'll bring out here for you working with clients. So from a brain storage issue, input from our senses, that's the auditory, visual, kinesthetic, and olfactory, they get stored with the memories too. All contributes to how memorable something may be. So the point is that every conversation makes an impact somewhere along the continuum of trivial to I never want to forget this. The question to you is how engaged you will be. But remember this, that your listening and subsequent questions will make an impact on your conversation partners, whether that be your spouse, a child, colleague, friend, or a stranger. So let's take a look at the mechanics of listening. But first, we're going to do our second poll. Okay, and it's up on my screen, so I assume it's up on yours as well. So this is a question you're going to answer. It's just one of these choices you get to make. The hardest thing about listening to my clients is almost done, Sarah?
Almost done. One more.
Okay.
If you don't have clients, just think of it in context of your relationships.
Right.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, this is a question that I wanted to see the difference here in the set. So all of these can happen at any time. But answering the question also gives you an action item for something you might want to work on as a coach. If you know that when they start telling the same story again, if you heard it 6 times, that you're just going to just zone out. You're going to need to think about what you could do other than the zone out. So you really keep that just intense listening all the time. Thank you for that, folks. Let me close this down and I will move to the next slide. Okay. So while this presentation is not about the examination of your coaching skills, the answer you just gave, again, reflects an area you might want to explore, no matter what your answer. A coaching question would be, what action might you take to improve your listening? So here's your first toss-up question. So you can unmute yourselves. How would you define active listening? How would you define active listening? Mics are open. You get to answer.
Where I can repeat back, if not word for word, the general intent of the comment.
Okay, thanks for that, Joanne. Anybody have anything they want to add to it?
I would add not only the words that are used, but the tone, expression, feelings that you pick up.
Yeah, great point.
And
Anybody else?
I would underscore both of those as important. I think of it in terms of understanding the meaning that's being conveyed, not just the words themselves, which I think has been said, but also what isn't said, but maybe intended to be understood.
Yeah, thanks for all those. They're all piece parts to this thing. You know, if we take it from the start it with a conversation. Every conversation has an initiator, and usually that initiator is either trying to pass on knowledge or again some other thing. But if they're passing on knowledge, then they also have to evaluate whether or not the conversation partner captured that understanding. So for professionally trained coaches, the job is also to look at the value of the information we just heard and how that information relates to the client's objective or the goal of the conversation. So we ask questions because we need to evaluate or validate what our clients have told us. But how about questions outside of a coaching session? How much do you use your listening and question crafting in the rest of your conversations in your life? You're the only ones that can answer that question. But for starters, I actually want to start looking at how the brain actually encodes information. Probably a little over half of this presentation is going to be spent on powerful questions and crafting powerful questions. But I sort of needed to build my case as to why you should even bother listening to this presentation. So we'll start at the top. Information encoding and storage and retrieval. It doesn't sound sexy, but it is vitally important to any conversation. This sequence of brain actions underpins all learning and is also linked to the health of relationships. In any conversation, as I said, there's the initiator and there's the conversation partner. And I'm going to use those terms throughout the rest of this presentation. So when it comes to conversations, the brains of both parties in a conversation encode data. They both store it somewhere in the whole cerebral cortex, which is then available for retrieval at a future date. So the important point is that both parties in a conversation can assist in both the encoding and retrieval steps of data exchange. There's this recent study in neuroscience that shows that if information is paired with a strong or pleasurable stimulus, the encoding, storage, retrieval sequence is stronger and lasts longer than what I would call unassisted learning. For instance, I had a colleague of mine who was experimenting with using music in her history lessons on the Civil War. In one class, she showed a time-sequenced photographs of the early war years, and then she paired it with this happy, confident tunes from the mid-1800s. But as the war years unfolded, the pictures changed to actual battle scenes and the hardships that were felt by both sides. And she changed the music to more somber tones. The outcome was her students were enormously engaged and were able to later answer questions on the battles and their significance in greater detail compared to a class which did not see her graphic presentation. So the point is that facts paired with sounds, graphics, smells, or tactile or sensory will be remembered longer than facts alone. And more so, if the information is personally relevant, then that adds a layer to this as well. So this research on the effects of pairing one or more sensory stimuli with any fact retrieving questions increases the probability of your clients or conversation partners having stronger recall of what was discussed in your sessions. So here's your first challenge, and this is part of the course. I want you to listen to the following short recorded message, and then I have some questions for you. Here we go.
Hey, Jamie, it's Carol. You know, I am really getting concerned about our dad. Do you know he never even called me on my birthday? Do you think we ought to be worried about his mental health? We need to talk. Give me a call.
Okay, just again confirming that you heard that.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
That,
Mhm.
thank you for that. Makes me feel a lot better. Okay, so who do you assume was the caller? Open mic.
Sister, a sibling?
Oh, yep. Okay, and who did she call? Well, she called. Yes, she called her other sister. Right. So, what was one of the issues?
Dad forgot her birthday.
Okay, yes, that's one. There was another. What else?
You asked for one issue.
What does it, yeah, right, Joan. Joanne. What does it mean that Dad forgot her birthday? Is his mental acuity changing?
Okay, good answer. And what did any of you pick up in terms of the tone of voice or emotion?
Sense of concern.
Urgent.
Okay, anything else? Okay, good. Okay, so I'm going to play it one more time and just see if you pick up anything else.
Hey, Jamie, it's Carol. You know, I am really getting concerned about our dad. Do you know he never even called me on my birthday? Do you think we ought to be worried about his mental health? We need to talk. Give me a call.
Okay, so even if you don't have one, play along. If this was your sister and you had picked up the phone when she called, what would you ask first?
I'm just not thinking about a normal conversation between siblings. I would say, well, if it were my sibling, I would probably respond, well, that seems like kind of a big leap. What takes you from dad forgetting to call you on your birthday to should we be concerned about his mental health?
Okay, what one answer, and Joanne started with a good coaching what question? Any kind of answer you come up with this, again, there's no right or wrong. The good thing about recorded calls is you can replay them and have time to plan your response. But if your sister came over to your house and launched that question at you, then you wouldn't have any time to replay it. You'd be expected to respond immediately. Sort of like with our own clients in our coaching sessions. With our clients, we are expected to respond immediately, or with at least come up with that next question, which is why we have to be totally focused on our clients. But the same holds true of any conversation. You will never know when someone drops a question on you for which they're internally just wanting a response, but their face might not show it, their tone of voice might not show it, but your response may be all that's what's keeping them from a mental breakdown. Now that's extreme, I know, but I'm trying to make the point that all conversations, even seemingly frivolous ones, may have unseen layers of seriousness. And the kind of coaching that we have been, in which we have been educated to ask those what questions, what makes you feel, what generated that response, those are much better than, nah, I'm sure you're wrong about that. Again, difference between our current culture and how we act as coaches. And I think there's a value for that transition into our everyday life.
Hey, Jamie, it's Carol.
Okay, it decided to play it again. Okay, so here's your next challenge. So I want you to listen to the following short conversation, and then I'll have some more questions for you. Here we go.
So, what are some things you could do to feel more comfortable with the new members of your team?
I could schedule time for one-on-one informal chats.
Good idea. What else?
I have some funds in my budget for team building, so I could take them to dinner or bowling or something.
All possibilities. What else?
Oh, I was just thinking about what I like to do, but remember, I mentioned that they both have some physical handicaps. I probably need to think about something less physical that they might enjoy.
Good thought. What else might you do?
I could make it a bit less formal and invite them to join me for a cup of coffee in the building's cafe.
So, you've talked about places for the meeting. What do you want to accomplish?
I want them to get to know me, and I want them to feel comfortable joining the team. But with the conversations, I can also find out more about them.
Sounds reasonable. When could you schedule the one-on-one sessions?
Let me get my calendar. Tuesday, I have two 30-minute blocks open. I can schedule it then, either jointly or two one-on-one chats.
Great, sounds like a plan. So, at the end of the chats with your new team members, what would success look like?
Okay, it goes by fast. And again, no right or wrong answers to this, but if this was your client, what might you have done differently?
I think on some level, I felt like everything the coach was saying was just an affirmation, but give me more. There was no kind of going a little deeper. I got the sense of it felt kind of pushy.
I will agree. It was just as if it was a very linear conversation. So the going deeper part, yes, is something that again that we are really trained to keep our eyes and ears open for. Anybody else? Good point.
I would agree with Andreas that it felt formulaic. And then at the point at which he said, I want them to get to know me better, and I think I could get to know them better. I think I want to explore, what does getting to know you better look like? How will you know that they've done that? And what is it you want to know about them that would help you to know them better? So I would want to get a lot more information into the conversation.
Yeah, totally agree. So this is one of those listening opportunities where you really have a chance to again try to look at what you could do, what they might have missed, where they could have gone deeper. So no harm, no foul on this one, because it's just a recording, but it really brings up some good points. So I thank you all for that. When we're talking about active listening in every conversation, active listening is the ingredient that provides the substance for driving the conversation forward. The listening is the partner of the ability to craft the powerful questions. But now we're going to transfer our focus over onto the questioning, the variety of questions. But first, we're going to have a poll, or it's our last poll, and this is one to focus on you reflecting on what kind of questions you ask. So Sarah, go ahead and put up poll number 3. And it's a drop down.
Is that sharing?
I'm seeing it on my screen.
Good. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we almost done, Sarah?
Yes, almost.
Okay.
One more vote. And again, if you don't have coaching clients, just think of it in terms of your everyday conversations. What is the quality of the questions you ask?
Yeah, Sarah, go ahead, just wrap it up then.
Okay.
We'll be fine, because this is not being graded. Yeah, so like all good Lutherans, we probably, even if we think that we have great questions, we probably said good on this. So, that's just the thing. But this is a question I wanted to ask because of it being questions being so important in what we do. And if there's room for us to look into what am I asking? How am I asking? Could I do better? That's positive for a coach in the reflexive training that we need to do as well. We're going to move into an
Barbara,
area
could I
where-
interject something at this
Yes, ma'am.
point?
Of course.
This is Carol.
Yes, Carol.
It occurs to me that there's what I think is a fundamental difference between my conversations with my coaching clients and my conversations with other folks in my life. Because with my coaching clients, my investment is in their success. I really am not vested in what they choose to do. With someone in my life, I might be pretty invested in what it is they choose to do. And so that really challenges me more to be coach-like. And I think it's worth drawing that out, that it just transferring the skill of listening and questioning from coaching might be more challenging than we think on the surface, depending on the nature of the relationship and how invested I am as a person in that relationship to the outcome of that conversation.
Yeah, really good point, Carol. Thanks for making that, because that is something that I will certainly use that, especially when, I mean, seriously, because I mean, conversations are conversations, right? No, they're not. Everyone has some power behind it, or things that could be enriched, and coaches have that power. We've been trained. So for us using it in situations where we have a higher investment, no, that's all to the good. Thank you for that, Carol. I really appreciate that.
So what are some things you could do to feel more
No, okay. For some reason it runs it again rather than go to the next. So okay, we're going to be talking about questioning. And part of this is not in the course. This beginning portion is, but then there's a whole portion that's not. For trained educators, it's their job to pass on knowledge and then also to evaluate whether or not the students captured the understanding. But as coaching professionals, it's also our job to look at the value of the information coming from our clients. How we shape our questions so that they are relevant and move the conversation forward can't be done without the act of listening. They are just so tightly linked. So we ask questions because we, as coaches, need to evaluate or validate what our clients are thinking or have learned. And let's see, the 4 categories on this slide of potential questions are, again, this is just one level of how you can look at questions. Absolutely just one. For the rest of the presentation, I'm going to talk about not just evaluating what a client knows, but using that retained information in really higher level brain processing. We'll start with the category of questions that coaches are encouraged not to use. And at the end, you'll understand the brain significance of why we don't ask them. Oh, what happened there? I just flipped back a slide. What are you seeing on your screens?
It's the previous
slide. Okay. Yeah, mine it flipped back for some reason. I go, what? Where are we? Okay. So Oh, and that's, we saw that one too, the evaluating stuff. Okay. It flipped back too. Isn't that interesting? Okay. So clearly, the easiest questions are categorized as either recall or recognition. So recall and recognition are both aspects of memory retrieval, but they're quite different, and they happen in various places of the brain. Recall retrieves information stored in long-term memory, and that can be stored anywhere in the entire cerebral cortex. There are several different types of recall. We could use a cued recall, in which some cues or hints are packaged into the question, making it easier to recall. Or you have the free recall, in which only minimal cues or none are given at all. But the one that's sort of freaky is called prospective recall. It's the most difficult of the three types because it offers no hints at all for remembering things that will occur in the future. For example, what will be the date of the next presidential election? Or what's the date when the first astronaut crew will land on Mars? So now, while the question is a recall question to a particular date, so it's close-ended, right? One right answer. It hasn't happened yet. So there's no other additional factual data available when it was stored in the brain. It's sort of a random factoid. If you ever have to make up exams for a test, this is the one that's always the gotchas, because it's really hard to retrieve something that really has very little information stored around it. One further point, if the memory encoding is interrupted by like a doorbell, the phone going off, that memory will be harder to retrieve, and possibly only fragments of what was said will be stored. So that's why asking your significant other to bring home milk from the store tomorrow while he's currently watching his favorite television program is not a reliable tactic. Just not. So let us look at recognition and how that's different from recall. So now you're finding out why we don't do these things. So recognition is usually linked to vision, sounds, tactile or olfactory senses, and identifies something that they have seen in the past or heard or smelled, tasted, touched, all past, which were cataloged in memory. Recognition involves no depth of processing whatsoever. It's matching what the current senses are picking up to a stored memory. So as with recall, the value of recognition types of questions is absolutely limited. That's why we stay away from them. So with all this mental work going on, we need to have clarity on why we're asking our questions and what is the potential value to your listener or conversation partner. So let's look at some active mind questions here and see how we can utilize them in our coaching. So when we talk about active mind questions, we're really specifically talking about that breed of questions that requires the conversation partner to use more than just the recall from the cerebral cortex. And while we acknowledge that some types of questions are less demanding than others, what we really want to measure is the value of the responses returned to us from any question. So this is what's required at the higher active mind questions that you see on the screen here, the thinking, imagining, pondering, evaluating, so that's the kind of stuff that really demands more of the brain than recall and recognition. But here's a quick down and dirty example of a recall question where there's only one right answer. So, ready? Who was the first man, along with his Sherpa guide, to climb the summit of Mount Everest? So, open mic, shout it out.
Sir Edmund Hillary.
Bingo, yay, right answer. He attained the summit on 29th of May, so anniversary coming up, 1953. Now, for those of you that knew the answer, how do you feel? Okay, well, hopefully you were feeling
Good.
Yes,
I was
yes.
making gestures you couldn't see,
Oh,
Barbara.
I couldn't see. Yeah, no. So, yay, Joanne. So, and what brain chemical is responsible for that?
I can't remember.
You can't. Okay, that's a factoid we don't care about.
Is
Okay,
that dopamine?
Yes, it's dopamine. Dopamine is the most notably involved in helping us feel pleasure as part of the brain's reward system. It's the feel-good neurotransmitter that's also involved in reinforcement. And when your clients or conversation partners experience something pleasurable, they're apt to repeat it, assisting in their session's engagement. So positive learning experiences can assist in coaching and any purposeful conversation. But let's flip this around. What if you didn't know the answer or got it wrong? What do you feel like? Can't see hand gestures. Okay, are you excited like Joanne is?
Well, I can tell you the difference between knowing the answer to the first question and not knowing the answer to the second question. Because I couldn't remember dopamine.
Yeah.
As soon as Daryl said it, it made sense. But I felt better about being able to answer the first question and less better about having to say, I don't know the answer.
Okay, yes. So that's the point. And that's, again, one of the strongest things that we have for locking people into a closed-ended question where there's only one right answer or very few, answers they could give, because it's a real downer. And there are emotions that come along with the questions that we ask. Okay. So for us as coaches, avoiding inadvertently dredging up negative feelings in your client is a really strong reason for avoiding closed-ended questions. So again, that's the behind the scenes part. I mean, many of us are told, don't use closed-ended questions. Well, why? This is one of the reasons why. The feelings. And that can be, again, it's really off-putting. The point is that if coaches are not paying attention to the value of the questions, you might miss an opportunity for more substantial client engagement. So the whole package of questioning starts with the objective. Why am I asking this? It includes monitoring the effect of the client. Early on, someone mentioned the fact about looking at what the client is, how they're feeling, what they're moving, so that's the whole visual kind of stuff as well. Then, depending on the answer we get from our client, the whole question processing cycle starts all over again. And we have another objective for why we're asking the next question. There's a cycle to it, as you know. So we're going to stop just really briefly and take a few seconds to answer these two questions. If there was anything at all that sort of piqued your interest, just write it down, just real quick, little note, and maybe an idea you'd like to test out in your next conversations. And I'll give you a 15-second. Okay, thank you for that. So for all of you, there is a value in just self-monitoring what types of questions you're asking in your conversations. Of course, the quickest way in our coaching sessions is for you to get permission, then turn on your phone and record a few minutes of it. It's really interesting when you go back and you look at listen to a session going, oh, gee, why did I do that? Why did I say that? So again, as we do in preparing for higher credentialing, it's the self-reflective process. And again, easy way to do it with a recording, but looking exactly at the types of questions you're asking, how you're asking them. Do you know what value you're expecting to get from the client when you ask them? I mean, it's all there just for you to play with. Okay, so if you've jotted down some of your thoughts, you now have maybe an action item that you'd like to try out. So in terms of questioning and the impact on the clients or whomever you're speaking with, we're going to take a deep look at the actual brain functions, paying particular attention to the effects of these higher level questions. This is the extra content that is not in the seminar. Okay, so we've already mentioned that generally factual and sensual data are stored in the cerebral cortex. That's a huge area, but that's an encoding and storage issue. But to actually engage higher level processing of memories and stored facts, multiple other parts of the brain are called into action. So we're going to take a look at a few of them now. The first one is this prefrontal cortex. It's near the front of the brain, manages complex problem solving and decision making and long-term planning. I used to know a young woman who was in a car accident and hit her forehead directly on the windshield. And a lot of the brain cells in that area were actually killed off. For her to engage in some of these problem solving, like in her high school class, it was very, very difficult because there's things that she couldn't do. And then the decision making and the long-term planning, it was really working against her. So again, that's exactly the area that is in the prefrontal cortex. This prefrontal cortex, this is interesting too. The prefrontal cortex works even when we're not conscious about thinking about the problem. This is why sometimes when you wake up from a good night's sleep, you have the solution to a knotty problem that you had from the day before, because that prefrontal cortex can be working on it even while you're asleep. And you have another area, it's called the anterior cingulate cortex. No, you're not being tested on this, which assesses potential solutions and determines whether they're successful. So when you're asking the kind of questions that are asking your client to come up with some solutions, this is the portion of the brain that they're using. So what kind of questions would you use if you specifically wanted to engage this area of the brain? That's a question for all of you. Sorry, I didn't make that clear. Just come up with any kind of random.
Well, perhaps a question like, what would happen if, and then propose a possible scenario or idea, and
Yeah,
let a person explore. Yeah.
Exactly. So here we have, again, if we wanted to help someone become more adept at finding solutions, then you have to ask those kind of questions. All right, so let me take a look at the next one here. In imaginative thinking, brain activity is located in the temporal-parietal cortex. And this is the area where the temporal lobe and the parietal lobe meet. This is what they refer to this as imagination central. So that's one for the imaginative thinking. Another function is the abstract thinking, involves locations in the frontal cortex. So, I mean, thanks to the advances in neuroscience, we know much more about how the brain operates and which regions of the brain process what. But the point is that your questions can stimulate many more parts of the brain than just recall and recognition. And utilization of all the sectors of the brain leads to healthy mental growth. So who knew that you were doing that as a coach, right? Okay, so we're going to do some exercises for your brain, and we're going to talk about another type of classification of questions, the closed and open-ended questions. Every coach has heard this at least once, that closed-ended questions are easy to ask, but the value that they bring with them is limited, so we stay away from them. So for the rest of the presentation, we're going to be exploring how to ask questions with this higher impact. What you have on the screen is a closed-ended question. Is making the team really important to you? The same kind of thing, was making the team really important to you? Again, answer set is what? What's the possible answers from the closed-ended question?
Yes, no, or maybe.
Thank you. Yes, exactly. That's it. Now, here's the thing. In our culture, when we ask a question like this, we expect the person to say, yes, because, no, because, and go about and blah, 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 and do the explanation. But that's not what you ask. As a coach, asking a closed-ended question is a waste of time. So what you're going to do is in the next one is that we're going to take a closed-ended question and convert it to an open-ended question. Now I have one example that on the slide here. Instead of says is really important to you to make the team. Open-ended question was, what is important about making the team? So what does that dig into? What is important? What kind of answer do you expect to get back?
A much fuller answer.
Okay, and what's it getting at? What are you probing into?
How someone feels about it, making or not making the team.
Right. The factors or characteristics that made it important. Right. But they could have just as easily made this a little bit different. Well, so let me just stop there. Depending on the answer to the closed-ended question, you could really get either a negative or a positive emotional response. And we talked about those. Well, we don't want to engender negative. So if it was, was making the team really important to you, and the kid's sitting there sobbing, well, yes, it was important to me. So again, the closed-ended questions by themselves, there's no value there. That's the point of this. But us recrafting, we can ask several different things. Why was it difficult for you to make the team? No, I shouldn't have said what factors made it difficult. And there's other ways we can wrap this around and get more value out of the question. Now, it's your turn. So here's a closed-ended question. Grab a piece of paper and write it down real quick. Did you try your hardest to solve the problem? There are multiple answers. You need to come up with one to create a better question. Go ahead, 15 seconds. Okay, time's up. Who would like to share with us?
I would ask, what was your greatest challenge in solving the problem?
Okay, good. And so what did you focus on then? What's your objective of?
What made it challenging? What made it stimulating?
Yes, okay. That good one. And again, you're looking at why you asked the question. What was your objective for asking the question? Good for you. Somebody else, please.
Did you really care if you solved the problem or not?
Okay, so let's examine that. What's the possible answers?
Yeah, I'm not that crazy about it now that I've said it out loud. Because it can easily lead to a yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Yeah. Using did is always a killer, but
Okay.
let's reshape it. Start with the word what or how, and still dig into the same thing.
How important? No, forget that. Scratch.
Well, you could you could still do that. Yeah. But that's so
How
here's
important was it? How important was it to you to solve it?
okay. So here's a suggestion that how important, there's a scale there, right? It
Yeah.
could be really important. So many people, so some coaches will say, okay, so on a scale of 1 to 10, how important was this to you? And that would be a good question. That would be good. But see, then you can measure. You're
Right.
asking them to put a weighting on it, and that becomes a very good question. Yeah, cool. Okay, so in fact, my example down here was on a scale of 1 to 5. How much effort did you spend on finding the solution? You know, other one could have been, what did you find difficult about solving the problem? Then you're really focusing on things that stopped him from solving the problem. So again, this idea of being able to think about your objective for asking, what are you probing into here before the question is done? Okay, anybody else want to give one?
Barbara, I was thinking of a couple of questions. One might be, how did you approach solving the problem, and what
Okay.
outcome did that get for you?
Okay.
Or
how
alternately, what happened? Oh, I was going to say alternately,
no.
what happens if you don't solve the problem?
Oh, that's another one too. So read the first one again. The how did you?
How did you approach solving the problem? And
Okay, so
I don't remember
stop right
exactly
there.
what I said.
So,
Yeah.
well, that's okay. So how did you? You're actually asked them what are the steps that they took to solve that problem. So that's a great objective, because you're seeing how they approached that problem solving. These are the steps that I took to get there. Yeah, again, very different from on a scale of 1 to 5. How important was this? Again, good question. But that's what I'm talking about in terms of the objective of your questions. And again, a lot of this is just woven into what your client has said for the past 45 minutes before you ask the question.
Right, Barbara. The context would guide you.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, good stuff. All right, one more. Close-ended questions. Are you looking forward to having a new sister? Well, to that question, answers are either yes or no. So let's assume for this one that you're talking to, let's up the age. Let's say it's either a teenager or a young adult. Okay, you're looking forward to having a new sister. How would you go about changing it to a more demanding question? Give you 10 seconds, go. Okay, let's see what we got. Now, first of all, the closed-ended question, I would classify this as small talk, especially if we're talking with a 6-year-old, 5-year-old. Oh, so you're looking forward to a new sister? You expect them to say yes, because you don't expect them to come up with any other kind of deep conversation. But you ask a teenager, there's more years there, you're going to get a very different answer. You still, with this one, you'd still get a yes or no. And if they say no, then they feel really bad about that, because they know they should look forward to the new. So very, very involved here in terms of but how can you change this? Let's give me one of your answers. How did you change this?
How do you feel about having a new sister?
Okay, so what's the I guess it's a predicate adjective, isn't it? The word feel. Okay, so what are you expecting to get out of that question?
Well, I think it would elicit a more honest answer from the child.
Okay, I'll buy that. And now it's the range though, is their feelings. If that's what you wanted to get at, boom, right on. Absolutely. So that's, and then it was a how question. Okay, you're asking them feeling. We're going to see about feeling questions in a few more slides. One or two more, please.
I was suggesting what changes are you anticipating at home with your arrival of your new sister?
Okay, and that again, that is a much higher part because it's anticipatory. It has not happened yet, but in there, you're digging into their mind, thinking, what do they think is going to happen? So, great question, especially if they're well. I can't play psych on this, but yeah, that's a really good one because you're again, it's a very different kind of focus with instead of just a yes or no, you're really asking them to give you what their expectations are. Yeah, great. One more and we'll go.
Can I just add one thing to that? I'm realizing, like your telephone message before, that even having the 10 seconds to think about the question seems a lot more generous than trying to figure that out in the moment.
Yeah, well, that's that. Yeah, but it's maybe we can save my question for all the coaches afterwards, because there is something about that because you're really genned up in your coaching to be able to again be right on top of things and just get those launch those questions out there. It's pegged with the active listening. What we hear is what drives us in the direction of those questions. So again, we're not looking at anything real here, no real coaching session. It's sort of hard to come up with some examples. The whole point, yeah, go ahead.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I do want to just be mindful of the time, and I'm noticing that we are at time.
We are, yes, we are. Okay.
That went so fast. But go ahead and finish your point, of course, and then I want to give people the option of bowing out if they need to because of other obligations.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for that. Well, we didn't miss much. There were like the two more slides. So the point of this whole thing on questioning is that your questions will return to you a richer answer set and provide insight into your client or the person you're talking with. So let me stop sharing there. And I will go up to view here and view the gallery so I can see everybody. There we go. So thank you. Thank you for playing along. And so Sarah, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, Barbara. Thank you so much for this insight into coaching and the skill set that goes along with coaching. I really think it could easily devolve into marriage counseling and so fast because all I kept thinking about is like, why can't I apply these skills in my like conversations with my husband? I always end up arguing with him. But thank you so much for the opportunity to learn from you and from the brain and how the brain functions and all of this. That was fascinating for me, especially the part about activating the problem solving aspect, the antillery, whatever that was. That was amazing.
Whatever.
I have to go back and watch the recording. So before we go and before we send you all off, I do want to recognize that we have the resource of Barbara's slide presentation that will be made available to you via our resource guide. We look for it via email through our Pacifica Coaching Group email address. And we will be sure to include that for you. And then I do want to just mention that we have these gatherings on the first Thursday of each month. And our next gathering will be June 6th. And we will be meeting actually with Donna Leitz again, who was our presenter in March. And she was talking about her research on COVID, or congregations after COVID. One of the things she uncovered in her research were what she identified as 5 key pivots that churches need to make in order to survive. And we're going to dig deeper into those 5 key pivots, and we're going to answer some more questions and spend some more time talking about that. I think it's fascinating conversation about the sustainability of church. So I encourage you to join us next month, and I encourage you to invite others who you think would be interested in the conversation, because the word gets out that way. We also would like to note that we will be taking a break for the first time in 4 years from these gatherings over the summer. We will be taking July and August off, and then hope to come back raring to go in September with some wonderful presentations that have a lot of meat and potatoes in them for you to digest and think about. So please, please make note of that in your calendars if you come here regularly. And also, we look forward to seeing you back in the fall. And with that, I would like to offer just a closing prayer, just to ground us and send us on our way. And then we'll go. So please pray with me. Heavenly Father, you are the one who is and was and is to come. You who love us so much that you sent your only Son to die for us. You, in your infinite wisdom, have challenged us. As individuals, we are often faced with uncertainty. As part of a greater human collective, you have shown us that the only way out of any chaos we are faced with is to truly care for one another. The only way this moment ends for us is if we love one another. Help us, Lord, to seek you in the midst of this chaos. Help us to be grateful for the opportunities you have provided for us to grow and learn as we are shaped by you. Please continue to remind us of your intentions for us, that we love each other and not just ourselves, that we love one another as you first loved us, that we not take on the worries and burdens of tomorrow, but instead take on only what we need this day. Bless us in health, peace, and faithfulness as we go forth to carry on your ministry of compassion, love, and care for one another. Fill us with your Spirit so that our words might be filled with your grace and our hands might become your instruments of mercy. We are your servants, and we thank you for the opportunity to bring your love to those who need it most. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, the way to you, Lord, the truth in you, the life in you. Amen. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so grateful for your participation. Be sure to continue to receive our emails and participate in these gatherings as we offer them. And God be with you on your way. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.